Hi everyone. I thought I might just share some tips and ideas for synchronous online learning, since that's where a lot of us are moving right now. With regard to what I'm trying to accomplish today, it's to help you identify key logistical aspects of synchronous online delivery and also to prepare for it. I want to start with the structure and logistics of a synchronous session. It should be 60 to 120 minutes and ideally 60 and pushing it at 120. You want to make sure that your learners have individual connections or are coming into the session with their own device so that they can participate in the interactivity that you're going to be doing with them. You want to have frequent and varied interactions, and you want spaced breaks. The session focus that you're going to have, well, ideally it would be skills development, the knowledge that you want them to acquire, the understanding to get that, maybe do the reading outside of the session and then come in and apply. There's nothing wrong with doing a little recap and highlight the key points you wanted them to get from the asynchronous portion of what they're doing. But try to expand, not repeat what they did outside of the session, but try to expand on what they did. And then finally, if it's appropriate for your session, go ahead and record it so that people can review it after. On the right, you see the graphic that represents the types of interactivity that you can have in a course, the learner, of course, being at the center. And they would have interaction with the instructor, other learners, the content for sure, and also the interface, which is what we're going to talk about with regard to a synchronous tool like Zoom. So this is what we will be using for the most part to deliver in the next little while. And Zoom has a lot of interactivity features. You can do polls with the learners, you can share your screen, you can share a video, you can share a whiteboard, get them to write all over it at the same time. You can have chats with them, you can have breakout rooms. Under that, you'll see the interactivity bar that shows up in the chat. And you can have learners respond to things by giving you a green check mark for yes or a red X for no. And they can also communicate with you and say, please go a little slower, you're going too fast, or please pick it up, you're going a little too slow. So there's a lot of ways to communicate that way. So my tip number one is to plan. Plan your interactivity before your session. Create your polling questions. If there's anything to prep for a whiteboard that you want them to interact with, if there's anything you have to prepare for breakout rooms, get that all done before, because you don't want to do that on the fly when you're in the session. A suggestion might be to insert slides to flag the learners about the upcoming interactivity. And here I've given a couple of examples. Pick one graphic that repeats whenever you're doing the certain type of interactivity. So if you're going to have breakout rooms, you have your graphic. Let them know what the activity is about. Give them the timeline. Have they got 10 minutes? Have they got 15 minutes? And then what's the deliverable at the end of it? Yeah, and let them know you can pop into their session to address any questions that they might have. If you have a poll, get a little graphic that says, okay, we've got a poll coming up, and so they know that the next slide is the poll. And if you're going to have something specific going on in the chat, again, a graphic, let them know what you want them to do in the chat, what you want them to respond to. Tip number two, practice, practice, practice. I cannot stress this enough, how important it is to practice before you get to your actual live session. Get a buddy, get a partner. So the value of a buddy, one, is that they can practice with you, and you can try all the things that you're going to do in your session with them and work out the kinks. In a live session, a buddy is also helpful because as you are delivering content, the buddy can watch the chat and see what's going on so that your attention is not diverted by two different things. And at some point, the buddy can speak up and say, hey, listen, so-and-so asked a really great question. Maybe now's a good time to answer it. Great use of a buddy. If you do not have a buddy in the session with you, let the learners know how you're going to proceed. So you may tell them that you're going to deliver for a certain amount of time, and in about 10 minutes you're going to stop. We're going to look at what questions have come up in the chat and try to address them, and then we'll get back to the main content again. Okay? The thing is just to communicate and let the learners know how it's going to go. Tip number four is play. When you actually get to your live session with your learners, please have a way for them to play with the tools. Let them get familiar with the interactivity. Let them mark up all over the whiteboard. Let them respond with a green check mark or a red X to something. Yeah, let them do a poll. Let them just play just to get familiar with everything. And then you can start your session. Tip number 5 is pause. Every 4 or 5 minutes, pause. At this point is where you're going to insert an interactivity, something that the learner is going to do with the instructor or the content or the other learners or the interface. Just make sure there's some kind of interactivity based on all those interactivity tools that we just mentioned in Zoom. And then take spaced breaks. You decide. Whatever works for your class, you'll have a good feel for it, and then let them know how much of a break they're getting. Are they getting 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes? Up to you. Just make sure to put that into your planning also. Tip number 6, practice, practice, practice. I can't say this enough. Practice before you go live. All right, so what are your next steps? What are you going to do next? Plan and organize your content. And prepare your interactivity slides and focus on the 6 P's that we just went through. Plan, practice, partner, play, pause, practice. I really hope that helps. It's just a quick and dirty, just trying to get us launched. I know you guys can do it. You're awesome instructors. Here we go.